Cool. So let's start with the sort of general question of wearables and parenting in a wearable world. For me, there are two sides of this, right? One is the parent side, and the other is the kid side. And they're two kind of very, with some exceptions like the gaming toothbrush, which I think has interest for both sides, ideally. It seems like there are different things at play, right? Right now, there aren't a lot of wearable tech products that are kid-friendly or oriented towards kids. I can't really think of many offhand. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, Adam, why your bracelet kind of stands out. Is this an untapped market? Is this something that, like, teens and tweens actually, would be all over if they only had the right kind of product?
I think it's an untapped market. So before we got too far with the progress of the next band, we did quite a bit of focus testing, and we brought in group after group and asked them about wearables and how much they wanted to wear them. And they're obviously all connected. They all have at least an iPod Touch, and this is going down to 10 or 9 years old. And I would say over 90% of them expressed very strong interest in having a wearable, and almost 0% of them had one themselves. And a few of them had a Nike Fuel Band, but other than that, they didn't have any. And when we asked them what they wanted something that was a reflection of their current interests, which is something very social, something that's very creative, something that expresses what they love, whether or not it's music or bands or books or something like that. So I think there's a lot of creative opportunities to market to them.
It does seem like creativity and expression is really more important for tech products for that demographic, right? Than like most teens are not going to be excited about just quantifying their activity, right? Or figuring out how many hours they actually sleep. They're going to be much more interested in using something to like connect with their friends, right? Or write or communicate or whatever. I mean, the flip side is the parent side, right? Where obviously you can imagine all kinds of things that parents would love to have their kids wear, right? Like the tracking bracelet on their, to make sure that you know where they are. But it does seem like that, finding a way into what the kids actually want has got to be the first step. I'm just wondering, in terms of coming up with the idea for this toothbrush, was this your first idea, or like how did you come to like generate the idea of a toothbrush that is a game that kids can play?
Both my partner and I are fathers of young sons, and for example, his kids, I think he got a dental bill for over $2,000. He learned a little bit too late about getting the kids to brush. And for me, it's like my son will say, when he's with me, he'll say, I forgot my toothbrush. I'll say, you didn't forget your iPad, you didn't forget your Nintendo DS, but you forgot your toothbrush. So it has to be a way that we can socially impact the relationship between parents and kids so that everybody gets what they want, so that everybody's happy. So kids get to play a game, they like it, they're motivated to do it, and the parents are happy because when kids get healthy brushing habits at a young age, that means they'll brush well as an adult, and they won't get these terrible things like heart disease that's linked to bad brushing habits. So the data that you can collect from wearable devices is useful for everybody, and you need to cater it to these different groups.
So can you take that insight into other fields of wearables? I mean, what does it take to make something attractive to both kids and the parents?
Yeah, if you look at the Herio watch, I think it's pretty cool. It's a GPS watch. It tracks the kids, but at the same time, it's got cool colors. I think in the future they can add games. So you need to incentivize kids to want to do things. I mean, kids already love to wear. You guys probably remember those little slap bracelets we have, or my son likes silly bands. Kids like to wear stuff. It's just that you need to package it in a way that's really palatable for them.
Yeah, you're not going to see, a kid wearing Google Glass, on the streets, or maybe in San Francisco, you never know. But I don't think, the average kid is going to have the ability to have access to something like Glass or even want to wear it. But something like, a Jawbone Up or a Fuel Band, I think they, if it looks cool, I think kids are going to be more willing to try it than not.
So Google Glass is an interesting thing. I mean, that's just starting to become a mainstream product now, right? You can actually buy it, but the price is still really high.
Yeah.
But I can see one way in which that kind of product, maybe not Google Glass itself, but something like that could be very attractive to kids in that it would allow them to take photos. And many of the teens and tweens I know are huge photo bugs.
Do a Google Glass, but only for selfies.
What's that?
A Google Glass, but only for selfies.
Yeah, exactly, right.
So the camera's
Google
pointing
Glass,
at
the camera's pointing at you,
yeah,
right?
exactly. So you're just wearing like a GoPro head cam, and all it does is take selfies. It's $1 billion idea right there.
There you go. Okay, so Google Glass, well, as long as we're talking about Google Glass, let's just segue to that. It could be an interesting parenting tool for the same reason, because you could use it to take videos or get updates or what have you. But I don't actually know any parents who are using Google Glass, and it sort of seems a little creepy at this point.
I think I've seen more Google Glass here than anywhere else outside of like the Google campus. Like I've seen probably like 10 or 15 people with Glass on them.
Yeah, I second that.
Yeah, it's like this is the
I'm
biggest.
shocked.
Yeah, it's like the biggest concentration of Glass users outside of the Google campus right here.
So yeah, I mean, you sort of have to be on the edge a little bit to wear it right now. But I can see that in the same way that, say, the Warriors have an app that lets you get real-time stats or updates or what have you, and you presumably, you could also tap to shoot a video of a cool moment in the game, right? You could do the same thing with, parenting, I suppose, right? You could look up, like, what does this symptom mean? Or you could get updates about where your kid is if they're not right in front of you. You could take videos if they're doing something really cute.
We talk to a lot of parents too, and it seems like the biggest application, and I think there are a lot of people probably here that would second this, is they just want to be able to find their kid when they get lost. So, one of the things that we're not personally doing, but one of our application developers is creating a geofence. So, for example, if a child is wearing one of our next bands and they go outside of, say, 50 meters of their parent, then their band vibrates and one of the mods lights up, and then the parent would be able to find them through proximity or through GPS. And it seems like that's the biggest thing for parenting and wearables right now.
Again, parents might really like that, but it seems to me that kids might be very resistant to wearing the sort of parolee ankle bracelet.
Yeah, yeah. So that's why it works well. Again, in our testing, we have a saying in our company: the average teenager is now 9 years old. So it's basically 7-year-olds, 6-year-olds. They're fine to wear something that they think looks cool, and and if their parents can track them, that's fine. But once you start getting older than that, they're not too interested.
Yeah, I mean, in high school, everyone's judging each other. So it's like the last thing you want to do is like be that one kid who's wearing that weird thing on their wrist or on their head, and then you're going to get picked on for your sophomore, junior, and senior year because that one thing you did during freshman year. So I think there's and this is one of the I think issues with Google Glass is that it's just culturally not yet really accepted. It's this weird new thing that people haven't really seen yet or haven't really experienced yet. And so if you're trying to bring that kind of technology down to this kind of younger generation, which strives to always be cool, it's like it creates some kind of social issues.
My family uses an app that does that kind of tracking thing called Life 360, and that runs on our phones, right? And I think the reason my daughter is willing to continue using it is that it gives her an extra degree of freedom to go places that we wouldn't otherwise let her go by herself necessarily, because we're reassured that we know exactly where she is. But there is an important distinction, which is that it doesn't track where she is, it tracks where her phone is, right? So I don't know, can you take that charm off and leave it behind?
Yeah, you can. Which is why I'm not so sure that that's going to be the killer application for the next band. Yeah, it's a concern. I have kids myself, but
tell us about some of the other applications of the next band.
So we were So the idea for the next band, we didn't even really come up with it. So my last company was a content company, and we created story worlds, and that's how Mighty Cast began as well. So we created this kind of science fiction fantasy story world, kind of Harry Potter meets the Hunger Games, and it was a story about these teenagers that wanted to start a secret society, and they end up becoming vigilantes. And one of the kind of characters in the story was this magical charm bracelet, and the secret society members, they could find each other through proximity, and they could send each other secret coded messages, or they could swap them and unleash different magical powers. And we started bringing in, we were doing the focus groups again, and every single group that we brought in said, we want that real magical charm bracelet. And we said, forget about the bracelet, forget about the bracelet. Look at this great story that we're creating. And you know, every group that we brought in, you know, they said the same thing, that we want you to create that real magical charm bracelet. So, you know, it was interesting, you know, they're very interested in the proximity, very interested in messaging and social communication. They're very interested in collecting and swapping. And then most of all, they're also very interested in how it looks on the outside. So something where, at least I think, where a lot of wearables maybe are falling short, or where they're going to start catching up a little bit, is being able to customize the look on the outside, and especially for the tweens and teenagers. That's all they want to do. They want to show, they want to have a reflection on the outside, so people can look at them and say, oh, that I like One Direction, or I like this movie, or I like this book, or this kind of style. So they're all about showing their expressions on the outside.
That's an interesting point. In fitness trackers, Fitbit is outselling all the others by a large margin right now. And I think one of the reasons, I don't know for sure that this is the reason, but I think one of the reasons is that it's available in many different shapes and sizes and colors. It's, one of the most diverse in terms of options.
I mean, you see that with a company like, Beats or Monster or any of these headphones companies.
Exactly.
I mean, they make like 30 different colors, and I think it's because they like that, people like that flexibility of like, oh, on Monday I'm going to have red, on Tuesday I'm going to have green, or whatever it is. And I think being able to really customize your wearable, I think will make it a lot more appealing, and especially, again, to the younger crowd who want to be cool. It's like you always want to do what's in. It's like I remember growing up, it's like, oh, well, I only wanted to wear a certain kind of shoe, like I only wanted to wear Nikes or Pumas, because that's what was cool back then. So I think if there is that customization element, I think people would be more inclined to try it out.
So, Ethan, I have a question for you, and maybe for you too, Adam, which is how do you do testing? Like, how have you been testing and figuring out that this product is appropriate for kids and meeting the needs of parents at the same time? Just walk us through that process.
Sure. Well, we started out with our own kids, and I think that what you need to do, as you were saying with your smart band, is you have to develop something that is aesthetically pleasing for the kids, that's fun, that they can play games with. It's like an offer they can't refuse. And then you can have the educational aspects to it. It's like the difference between maybe, those games that you used to play in middle school, they provide you from the school. A lot of them weren't that fun because they were just looking at the math part first and not the fun part. So we get feedback, from our own kids, and then we moved on to kids around the neighborhood. And now every time someone hears about the Grush, they say, I want that. And we say, okay, we add you to the beta list. So we kind of grow our network that way. And we get some great feedback. Like some parents said, maybe the kids can compete against each other. So if you have a pet that you can raise, maybe you can have two ponies that can race each other if you have two girls in the family. Things like this has been very valuable for us.
I'd love to see the combination of, like, if you take something like Farmville and you take something like the Up or the Fuel Band or a Fitbit or a Misfit or whatever, and you get actual points in these games that we're so addicted to, or like Candy Crush. It's like, I don't play Candy Crush for my own better self, but so if there's like points that you need, like you could get 10,000 more points if you did 10,000 steps. I think adding those kind of elements are so crucial for young people who need to constantly be engaged.
That's a fantastic idea. I really like that.
$2 billion ideas in one session.
I'll take it.
I think you have to incentivize kids. I prefer using more the carrot than the stick. So give them points. If they brush their teeth well, maybe they'll have more pigs in Farmville, things like that, rather than punishing them for not doing it.
And again, I think it's all about the user experience too. So we, at least for testing, and I think this would go for any wearable company, is start with the basics. Like for example, we've identified proximity, messaging, gaming, things like that, and then we do a lot of paper prototyping because it's not cost effective to create actual prototypes each time you want to test something, but there are other ways that you can test or validate different kind of gaming mechanics. So we're trying to create, kind of to your point, something like a game console on your wrist where different mods can act as different characters or weapons or things like that. But what weapons, what kind of game mechanic, what's going to resonate? And we don't want to go out and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and create prototypes and fail that way. So we try and fail as cheaply as we can.
How do you find subjects for these tests? I mean, once you've gone past your family. We go through schools. There are community groups. We recruited in the Y. We posted ads in local stationery stores wherever they congregate, and then we do it by age group too. So it's very interesting when we test 11, 12-year-olds, we get completely different results than 15, 16-year-olds. So they're two totally different markets. The kids are hanging out in stationery stores these days?
Yeah, because they want to buy those big eye stuffed animals.
Oh.
That's all they buy.
Okay, wow.
They don't buy toys anymore. They buy apps, iPods, and big eye stuffed animals. At least that's my experience.
I was just thinking about this just now. It's one of the big things that's kind of popping up is this whole kind of 3D printing craze. So I think it'd be really cool, again, with the whole customization piece, I think it'd be really cool if someone was able to build their own wearable. Because I think a lot of people, they really go 100% behind something that they created or they built. I mean, there's that sense of, I did this. So I think it'd be really interesting if, and as, a MakerBot and all these companies, I mean, like even Monoprice is making their own 3D printer right now. It's becoming cheaper and cheaper. It would be really interesting to be able to build your own wristband which has a sensor in it or whatever. Because I think it would be really, really, I would be more inclined to wear something that I actually created.
I like that idea.
$3 billion ideas in a single session. I'm on a roll right now.
Getting more than you paid for here. Okay, so as a parent, privacy is one of the issues that really concerns me when it comes to wearable data, especially when you start talking about geodata, right? You have to take extra precautions above and beyond what you do with any other sort of adult-oriented geo-tracking data, because among other things, there's there are laws like COPPA which regulate how much information about children under 18 that you can actually collect and save. Is this an issue that you guys have had to wrestle with in terms of managing the data that your apps are generating or your wearables are generating?
So yes, and so for those of you who don't know, COPPA compliance, basically the basic law says that you can't collect personal information about children under the age of 13 without parental consent. So that's a pretty, it narrows the filter quite a bit, and it's
13, not 18 then.
Yeah, it's
okay.
13 years old. Yeah. Did I say 18?
No, I said 18.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's 13 years old.
You wish it was 18.
And
for your daughter, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I want the protections to extend as long as possible.
But it's, and so the workaround is you don't collect personal information, and maybe you just have a user ID and no photo, or they choose an avatar or something like that. But when you start thinking about wearables, I think COPPA, in a way, they haven't gone far enough, because you're wearing something that's a beacon on you at all times, and especially if it's a product that's targeted at the tween or teenage demographic, then there's always a way for, you can never outsmart a predator, and I think we're all paranoid here, and if there's a way, it's going to happen. So we've put in some double authentication methods, that's how you can find friends through proximity and things like that, and I don't think it's been legislated yet, and so I think we're going to see all sorts of weird things happening.
Well, I just went through this whole process of revising COPPA to catch up with the mobile world, so maybe it needs to be revised yet again.
I think so.
We have about 2.5 minutes. Are there any questions from the audience out there? If anybody wants to ask a question, raise your hand or wave it vigorously. I can't see you very well, but if you wave enough, you can shout out a question for our panelists here. Anyone? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead with the next question on my list. Okay, baby tracking. Actually, I don't know if this is as much of a question, but I think actually baby tracking is the huge market when it comes to parenting. And I realized this when I watched Intel's keynote during CES this year, where they demonstrated a sort of demonstration product that's not a real product, but a onesie, a baby onesie that collects vital signs on your infant, like respiration and heart rate and whether it's sleeping or not. But the brilliant thing was it beamed that information to a pair of coffee cups so that the parents could keep an eye on what their kid was doing while they're looking at, drinking their coffee and trying to stay awake. Which I think is a really good recognition of what the reality of parenting life of a newborn really is all about. Anyway, that's a nice example of kind of dovetailing of, wearables and parental data collection, I guess. Do you guys want to add anything else about like a product that you wish existed, or what you think is next in terms of a wearable parenting tech?
Well, I think what I would like to see is, I think this is a big market opportunity because the penetration rates for mobile devices and even iPod touches is so high for this age range, and I don't think there are really any applications for them yet. So I think it's a big opportunity. It's surprising that there haven't been more people going after this market right now. A lot of people are doing it where you customize notifications, and notifications that are on your phone go to your band, and I think that'll be commoditized at some point, and it's nice right now, but I don't think that's the killer application. So I think there's a lot of room. I think we've tackled a lot of the technology, and I think now there's a lot of room for creativity.
Okay. Ethan.
I think a kid's smartwatch would be a lot of fun with games on it and things like that.
Okay. Daniel?
Yeah, I think wearables today are not super fashionable. I wish that they looked better. I mean, they looked more like a watch or something that we already wear. Or it's like if Google Glass actually looked like the pair of glasses I wear, not like a cyborg's glasses. I think I really wish, and I think there is a company doing this. I was just looking at them yesterday. I forget the name, but they're trying to do more kind of fashionable wearable technology. So I hope that it becomes more mainstream, because I think that the potential and the possibilities of wearable technology, and not just for us in basketball, but just for any person, I think is absolutely huge.
Maybe wearable makers can take a cue from Beats, because I don't think those are especially good looking, but enough people like them, clearly, that they're probably the most worn piece of technology that you actually see on people. Yet they're on everybody's heads, right?
We need a Steph Curry or LeBron James to start wearing some wearables, make them really go mainstream.
There you go. All right, well, with that, we're out of time, so let's thank our panelists, and very interesting discussion. Thanks, guys.